Welcome to HDO Photo. Today's video will introduce you to basic lens and filter concepts. This series generally uses Canon and Nikon terms due to their importance within photography. This is a kit lens, the type of lens that comes with most cameras. Kit lenses are short lenses, usually running from around 16 to about 55 millimeters. This is called the front element. This is the lens barrel. This is the front lens cap. It protects the front element of the lens. To remove the cap, press down on the two latches and lift it off. To reattach the cap, gently press it against the front element while holding the latches. The cap should snap into place when the latches are released. This is the rear lens cap. It protects the connectors at the back of the lens. To remove it, loosen the cap by turning it counterclockwise until it stops moving. Once it's loose, the cap should lift off easily. This lens uses a switch on the lens barrel to toggle autofocus. Depending on your lens or camera brand, you might control this from the camera body or inside a menu. In this case, when the switch points to AF, the lens is set to autofocus. When the switch points to MF, the lens is set to manual focus. To attach the lens, I'll need to match the marking on the lens with the one on the camera. In this case, it's the white square. Once I have those lined up, what I need to do is slide it in, then turn it towards this button here until the lens clicks into place. I've got my camera connected to my computer so that you can see what I'm doing. I'll set the lens to autofocus. Next, I'll set my camera to single servo autofocus. In this mode, the lens stops autofocusing once the subject is in focus. Canon labels this one shot, while Nikon refers to it as AFS. In my case, this is accessed with the Q button at the back of the camera. I'll use the down arrow to highlight the setting currently labeled servo. Then, I'll use the left arrow to highlight one shot. To confirm the change, I press Set. In many cameras, the default way to autofocus is to press the shutter button down halfway. Do it gently so that you don't accidentally take a picture by pressing the button down all the way. Once the subject is in focus, I'll press the shutter button down all the way. Notice that the screen goes black when I take a picture, which is normal for a DSLR camera. Autofocus is great, but there will be times when you need greater control of how the lens focuses. For those situations, there's manual focus. I'll begin by switching the lens to manual focus. To manually focus my kit lens, I'll rotate the front element until the subject is in focus. This section applies to focusing with an eye-level viewfinder. For this demonstration, I'm attaching a device that records my DSLR's optical viewfinder. Here's what the camera is looking at. Once more, I'm focusing the lens manually. Notice how the image isn't becoming clear, even as I refocus the lens. This is because the viewfinder's diopter isn't set correctly. Many cameras use a wheel or dial to adjust the diopter, though variations do exist. For example, this mirrorless camera uses a slider instead of a wheel to control its diopter. Next, I'll turn the diopter wheel until the image in the viewfinder is clear. It may be necessary to refocus the lens. Here's the resulting image. Setting the diopter correctly permitted us to judge focus accurately. It makes a big difference. It's also worth noting that the diopter affects the display inside the viewfinder as well. I'll wake up the display by pressing the shutter button down halfway. I'll turn the diopter wheel again. Notice how the display at the bottom of the viewfinder turns blurry when the diopter is not set correctly. Once the diopter is set properly, the display becomes clear. It's important to understand that the diopter doesn't affect lens focus, only the clarity of what you see in the viewfinder. Right now, we're looking at a feed directly through the lens as captured by the camera's sensor. Once again, I'll turn the diopter wheel. Notice that the focus remains the same, because the diopter only affects the viewfinder. So remember, if you're having trouble focusing with your camera's eye-level viewfinder, check the diopter first. Let's discuss focal length, which is how much magnification a lens provides. This is measured in millimeters. This lens has a range of 18 to 55 millimeters. The lower number, 18 millimeters, is the widest view the lens can provide. The higher number, 55 millimeters, is the closest view that the lens can provide. I'm going to show you another lens, so I need to change the current one. To remove the lens, I press and hold down the lens release button here. Then turn the lens away from the button until it stops moving. Once the lens stops moving, I can lift it out. This is the classic 18 to 200 millimeter zoom lens for Canon made by Tamron. It features a separate focusing ring, which allows you to focus more easily than with the kit lens from earlier. It also has a zoom lock. When that zoom lock is toggled on, it prevents the lens from accidentally zooming out when it's pointed downwards. To attach a lens, I need to match the marking on the lens with the one on the camera. In this case, it's a red dot. Once I line those up, I can insert the lens, then turn it towards the lens release button until the lens clicks into place. This is the lens zoomed out all the way to 18 millimeters. This gives a very wide field of view. This is the lens zoomed in all the way to 200 millimeters. This gives a much closer perspective. This is the excellent Canon L 100mm macro lens. It's one of my favorite lenses for both teaching and general photography. This is a macro lens, which means that it can take pictures of little subjects up close. It's also great for portraiture. This is referred to as a prime lens because it doesn't zoom in or zoom out. This is a UV filter, a clear filter that protects a lens from damage. They're a good investment. Here's a different UV filter. Notice that it's much smaller. The filters are different sizes because they're used with different lenses. Here's the two filters side by side. It's easy to tell that the filters are very different from one another. Here's a different set of UV filters. They're not quite the same size. Here's every filter we've discussed so far. Let's examine how filter size is measured so that we can more accurately tell these apart. The size of a filter is called its diameter. This symbol represents diameter. Diameter is measured in millimeters. Understanding diameter allows us to know if a filter will fit a lens. The diameter is usually written somewhere on the filter. Let's start with these two, which are labeled the same way. The larger one starts with the manufacturer's name, followed by the number 72. This is a 72mm filter. The smaller filter also begins with the maker's name, but is instead followed by the number 58. This is a 58mm filter. We can also see that they're both UV filters because they're each labeled UV haze. Let's examine the other two filters. These aren't labeled in front like the other pair. Instead, the information we need is written on their sides. The larger filter begins with the manufacturer's name, followed by 62mm UV protector. This is a 62mm UV filter. The smaller filter also starts with the maker's name, but is instead followed by 52mm UV protector. This is a 52mm UV filter. Here's the 62mm filter and the packaging it came in. The filter diameter can be found on the package as well. In this case, the diameter is labeled right in front. The package is for a 62mm UV filter. Filter and lens diameter must be identical so that they fit together. Now that we know the diameter of the filters, let's do the same for the lenses. Here's the 72mm filter with its matching zoom lens. In this case, the diameter is labeled near the bottom of the lens. The information begins with the diameter symbol, followed by 72mm. This lens has a diameter of 72mm. Up next is the 62mm filter with its corresponding zoom lens. This time, the diameter is written on the label. It starts with the diameter symbol followed by the number 62. This lens has a diameter of 62mm. Here's the 58mm filter, along with the matching kit lens. This lens's diameter is written on its front element. This lens has a diameter of 58mm. Here's an interesting example. This is the 52mm filter along with the prime lens it's used with. The diameter isn't labeled the same way as the other lenses from before. The diameter isn't listed on the front element. It's also not marked on the lens barrel. It's actually written on the inside of the lens cap. Let's take a closer look. This lens is labeled E-52mm. This lens has a 52mm diameter. Here's a Nikon kit lens with the diameter labeled in two places. The first is on the lens barrel. Here's the diameter symbol followed by the number 52. This lens has a diameter of 52mm. Like the Canon Prime from before, the lens diameter can also be found inside the lens cap. It's marked 52mm, confirming that the lens has a 52mm diameter. This is a 400mm lens, along with the packaging it came in. A lens's diameter can generally be found on its packaging as well. Let's take a closer look. In this case, the diameter is listed on the side. This lens uses a 67mm filter. Now that we've explored how to find the diameter of a lens or its filter, let's discuss how they're used together. To attach a filter, gently turn it clockwise so that it screws into place. Don't make it too tight or it might not come off without the help of special tools. To remove a filter, gently turn it counterclockwise until it comes off. Now that we've covered lens and filter diameter, I recommend using UV filters to protect your lenses. It's far better to replace a damaged filter than to try and replace a potentially rare lens. I hope to cover other types of filters in a future video. Thanks for watching! If you enjoyed the video and are interested in seeing more content like this in the future, please like, share, and subscribe.